Hi, I'm Jeff Van Gundy, and you're listening to Thunder Bus.
Welcome to Thunderbus with your hosts Watson and Bones.
I'm Watson.
And I'm Bones.
We get serious about the Thunder on this podcast.
But we don't get too serious.
Bones, today we are joined by Lon Kruger. Lon has won over 600 games as a college coach and has taken 5 different schools to the NCAA tournament, including Kansas State, Florida, Illinois, and UNLV. He has also made 2 Final Fours and today is the head man for the Oklahoma Sooners. Coach, welcome to the bus.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
So our first question, you were drafted by the Atlanta Hawks. You played minor league baseball with the St. Louis Cardinals, and you were invited to the Dallas Cowboys training camp to try out for quarterback. So multi-sport athlete. What steered you towards coaching basketball?
Well, got to a point, played a little baseball after college and a little basketball after college, but got to a point where wasn't good enough to play anything for a living. So basketball coaching
happens
was the
to all of us.
Yeah, exactly. Next best option, chance to work with young people, and have enjoyed those opportunities and met a lot of good people along the way. So it turned out well.
But why basketball instead of baseball or football?
Well, you know what? Actually, growing up, baseball was first love. My dad was a huge baseball fan, played a little baseball himself, and kind of grew up in that household. But we all, we went to a small school, 35 in our graduating class. So whatever we played, baseball, basketball, football, whatever season was in, that's what all the guys did. So baseball was always the first love, but basketball kind of what we ended up playing the longest.
Gotcha. Now you referenced that you had a brief professional basketball career, and that was in Israel. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep. After college, went to played minor league baseball with the Cardinals, and then that winter went overseas and played basketball in Israel, and actually got had a good team, and we got in the playoffs over there and didn't get back in time for spring training and in baseball. And the Cardinals didn't worry too much about it, so that kind of ended the baseball part of it. And went to the exhibition season, played with the Pistons, through an exhibition season, and got cut in just prior to the regular season starting, and that's when we turned to coaching.
Coach, in a Tulsa World article, Joe Castiglione stated that you finally accepted the OU job after the 3rd time he reached out. What ultimately made you want to accept the job?
We were very content in Las Vegas. We actually went there expecting that to be our last stop. Love living in the city. Love the people of Las Vegas. I guess just in the end, to get back into Big 12 basketball, opportunity to recruit in a way that gives you a chance to go back to the Final Four, which we were fortunate enough to have good enough players to do that a few years ago. So back closer to home a little bit. I guess we grew up in Kansas and B8 Big 12 territory, so probably just in recognizing how good the leader Joe was and the programs he ran. So it all made sense in the end, I guess, to get back closer to home and be at Oklahoma.
Well, speaking of home, what's something you're proud of this year's team for?
This team really practiced well. They practiced hard. We were, inconsistent in shooting the basketball. We were all over the board in terms, offensively especially. But they kept working at it. Kept great attitudes in practice. Kept getting better as the year went along. And even though we were still up and down with regard to shooting it, we became pretty solid defensively, rebounded the ball a little bit better late in the year, and actually playing our best basketball last couple weeks of the season. So they kept making progress. That was the most important thing.
Yeah, and with that performance towards the end of the year, I think you guys were considered to be a likely tournament participant before everything got canceled. And in your 8 seasons with OU, you made the tournament 6 times and the Final Four once. How do you get your team mentally prepared for win or go home games like that?
Mostly, I think just every day in practice, you just try to be consistent in terms of working each day to get better, and then preparing for each ball game like it's the most important one. I don't think you can be really high for one game and then not so high for the next one. We try to prepare for each one, try to talk about winning each possession, and that way I think you're able to play a little bit more consistently. Even though we're not always going to shoot it well, we're going to play pretty much the same way each night out, and hopefully when it comes tournament time, you can play against teams that are wanting to win also. So you try to execute a little better, hit a little better screens, finish rebounds better, do all the little things, attention to detail a little bit more.
Yeah, I like that you talk about the attention to detail and the little things, because when you're coaching 18 to 22-year-olds, they're probably most prone to forget the little things when they're in an exciting environment like that, where they are on national TV and they're pursuing their dreams. It's easy to get excited and forget your discipline in those moments.
That's very true. That's a good point. Everyone's thinking about winning and want the result, but most important that you focus on the things necessary to give you the best chance to win, and that's what I think the repetitions in practice are all about, trying to help them develop the habits so when they get in those late game situations, they're able to execute and perform as well as they possibly can.
So you referenced that Final Four run. Obviously, the team was spearheaded by Buddy Hield, who second all-time in scoring at OU. Pretty prestigious accomplishment there. What can you tell us about coaching Buddy Hield?
Well, Buddy was a coach's delight. He brought it every day, great enthusiasm, great energy, very much about team, whatever he can do to help the team get better. He was very genuine when he asked the question, what does he need to do to help the team more and to get better himself? And he had the ability to go to the gym by himself and work on things that needed improvement. A lot of times players go to a gym and do things they're most comfortable doing. And Buddy had the ability to go to the gym and work on things that needed improvement. And as a result, he's even gotten better during his 3 years in the NBA. He's gotten better every year, and I think he'll continue doing that. He's got that perspective of being very genuine about working on things to get better.
Coach, do you guys still talk today?
We do, yeah. Buddy called in fact a couple nights ago and had a prospect for us. So, Buddy's he's a great team guy. He's he's very outgoing. He's very genuine, very sincere. He'd come back to campus today and make sure he spoke to everyone in the office and ask them how they're doing and make them feel well about themselves. So Buddy's got that type of personality, and when he walks into a room, it seems that he brightens everyone's day.
Coach, with a guy as talented as Trae Young, who can make plays for teammates at any time and shoot off the dribble from anywhere, do you just have to throw everything else out the window and design the offense around him?
Trae was super skilled and is super skilled. Probably, no one really expected him to do in the first month of his college career what he did. He was leading the country in scoring, leading the country in assists, and he was doing things that had never been done in the college game before, let alone by a guy that's in his freshman year. So, just very quick with the ball, great imagination, unbelievable skill to get the ball to teammates. He's and the NBA game suits him so well because the floor is spread, there's good spacing, and he's able to, like you say, go by anyone off the dribble and make plays for others.
And how difficult is it for Trae, for guys like that? He's often compared to Steph Curry, who's also good at this. How difficult is it to have that court vision and see these angles that other players don't see, while also looking to play for the pull-up jumper? Those seem almost like contradictory goals.
Yeah, he's got a great feel for it. He's got great his instincts are good. He anticipates well. He's very creative, great imagination, and the skill to complete plays. It's one thing to kind of have the imagination and anticipation of what's going to happen, but the ball he's just so second nature with him. He's not having to worry about the ball handling. He's got that. He does that as well as anyone in the league, and so it's very natural for him. He's very, very, very skilled with that.
So you spent some time coaching in the league for the Atlanta Hawks. Can you tell us where some of the differences in coaching in the NBA versus coaching in college?
Well, the primary difference is you're just obviously catching guys at a different stage in their lives, different stage in their career. In college, you've got guys that are wanting to get to the NBA and aspire to be an NBA player. And in the NBA, you got guys that are there, and now they're dealing with their families, their agents. Got different people around them. So just different stages. In college, you're still trying to help them develop. Certainly, they want to keep improving the NBA, but they've clearly established themselves as one of the best players in the world at that point. And in college, very few, they all want to get there, but very few have the opportunity. That's the biggest difference, is catching people at a different stage in their lives.
Coach, how difficult is it to focus on recruiting while the season is going on?
That's a challenge because obviously you're preparing for the next opponent. You got a couple games a week, so every 3 or 4 days you've got another ball game. That's your main focus. But the assistant coaches, the other members on the staff, do a good job of maintaining contact. Watching groups play, get them to campus, and then we'll try to get out, when we can to watch guys as well. But it's a little easier to do that with guys around, the Oklahoma area than too far away. But we try to get away occasionally to play on Saturday, Monday, and we got a Tuesday opportunity maybe to get a little bit farther away from campus. But that's a challenge. Because first and foremost, you want to coach the guys you have. So you got to be building for the future, and recruiting is a big part of that.
Coach, so one typical characteristic of coaching is yelling, yet you seem to stay relatively calm throughout the game. How do you get the most out of your players without yelling and getting extra emotional?
Hopefully we establish that in practice. I think we've you have an expectation in practice of playing and competing extremely hard, and again, there's constant communication, talk in practice. I don't know that you have to yell and voice necessarily, but you got to be consistently reinforcing the level of effort that you want. And we hope to do that, establish that through every day of practice. And if we do that, then we can kind of go into a ball game doing the same thing we do in practice. And typically, our guys do play hard and they compete hard, and hopefully, that puts them in position to get good results.
Can you tell us what goes through your mind when considering a timeout after an opposing team run? Do you try to give your players the freedom to resolve without a timeout, and is there a long-term benefit in that?
Probably try to do that a little bit more, in non-conference early in the year. If another team's on a run, maybe a little bit less quick to take a timeout as opposed to maybe during conference play. But if we can establish some leadership on the floor, you like doing that. Anytime you can, try to have those individuals grow in terms of solving problems by themselves. But there's a point there where you try to draw a line. But again, a little bit more hesitant to call timeouts in non-conference, in the hopes that they grow a little bit, probably a little bit quicker to call timeout during conference play.
So we had Arkansas coach Eric Musselman on a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how he thinks that basketball should have the same rules on every level, high school, college, and international, NBA. Along those lines, the NCAA moved the three-point line back in 2008, and they moved it out again in 2019. Do you see it moving to the NBA length soon, and how does that affect the game?
I really think the college game is occasionally made adjustments to move more toward the international game. And I think as opposed to the NBA, I don't know that we'll see the line. International depth is where we're at now, and I think that's probably where it'll be for a while. I think again at some point we'll probably advance the ball to front court on a timeout, as the NBA does, as the international game does. I don't know if it will go to quarters anytime soon, but wouldn't be surprised at some point in the future.
Well, the women's game is in quarters now.
It is, yeah. It has been there for 3 or 4 years, and they seem to like it. And again, Eric's point I think is good. It's I think every time we make a change, it seems like we're moving more toward the international game than anything else.
Coach, we got a few Thunder questions here for you.
Yeah.
So, were you surprised by how successful the Thunder were this year?
They surprised everyone in general, and yet Coach Donovan does such a great job. And it seemed that from the start, their chemistry was good, and they played with great effort. Coach does a great job with them, and the way they played the first month of the season, I don't think they surprised anyone after that, because they pretty much established that they were going to share the basketball and play extremely hard and play well together, and as Coach Donovan's teams always do, and I thought they were terrific all year long.
Obviously, one of the big differences between this year and last year was, last year the team was kind of piloted by Russell Westbrook and his personality, whereas this year Chris Paul brought a different style of leadership. And in the NBA, coaches rarely get credit for success, but they're often blamed for failures. Usually the players get credit for success. So can you kind of talk about is that fair to judge NBA coaches that way, and to what extent do you attribute the Thunder's turnaround in culture this year to the presence of Chris Paul?
I have no doubt that Chris had a huge impact on the success of the Thunder. It seemed that he and Coach Donovan had a great connection, and Chris' relationship with the other players seemed to be terrific. So when your leader, when your best player is establishing the standards the way that Chris did for the Thunder this year, you're going to have good success. I think in terms of fairness, that's just the nature of the league. When your best players, when teams win, the stars are going to get the credit, and they don't, and typically the coach is going to get fired and take the blame. But that's the nature of the game, and the NBA especially, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Great. So on more kind of a broader NBA level, just as an example, Toronto's Nick Nurse has been very successful with the Raptors, and he's not afraid to try full court presses and zones, which used to be almost non-existent in the NBA. Do you think there's too much uniformity in NBA strategy today?
Typically, that happens when the team has success in the NBA or in college or anything else. It seems like other teams will kind of adopt whatever is working. Obviously, the game now has become kind of positionless with great floor spacing, a lot of three-point shooting. I think people that are a little bit extreme, whether it be pressing full court or even shooting threes like the Rockets to that degree, is a little bit unusual. But for the most part in the NBA, you get pretty much everyone doing something similar. I don't think anyone goes too extreme. Again, usually it's because some teams have done something well and it's worked, and other teams, try to adopt something similar.
When you see trends like that, sweeping through, college basketball, like say lots of your opponents are playing a particular way. Do you have an instinct to look for the zig to their zag, to try to exploit? Maybe if they're pacing and spacing a whole lot, playing positionless, there are a lot of rebounds available. How do you consider that as kind of a counterattack?
You always try to do something to take advantage of what the opponent is doing. whether it be, like the pick and roll has become pick and pop. Either one becomes such a big part of college basketball. You've got to be able to guard that well. And then you've got to be able to, maybe do certain things offensively behind the ball screen, whether it be, stealing on the weak side or another ball screen. You're always trying to adjust to what the opponent is doing and try to do something that, you try to anticipate what they're going to do, and then you try to do things to take advantage of that. But, again, everyone's well coached and people do a great job. So it usually comes down to executing things well and making shots. If you can do that, you probably put yourself in good position.
So you've always obviously been around the game for a long time. You've been coaching since the 70s. What are some of the major changes that you've seen over that time, both in strategy or maybe in rules or among players?
Most importantly, there are more good basketball players on each team. I think back in the 70s, each team might have a player or two that would separate themselves. But now, you've got teams that have 4 or 5 really good basketball players. And I think the depth of talent is probably the biggest difference. The game has become, much faster, much more skill among the players, bigger guys, handling the ball like, point guards, did in the 70s. Now it's really pretty much across the board. So just the talent is the biggest difference. And I think players playing the game at an earlier age, year-round, that didn't happen nearly as much in the 70s as it does today.
Yeah. Well, that's the last stop on the bus today. Lon, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'll bet. My pleasure. Thank you. Good luck.
You can follow Coach on Twitter at Lon Kruger. Thunderbus is on Twitter at Thunder_bus_pod, and you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, thanks for riding the bus this week, and Thunder up!